Hey everyone, this is Jeff Culhane, voice of the Florida State Seminoles, and you're listening to the Philip Jordan Show podcast.
Back by Nobody's a Man But Our Own. Welcome into another edition of the Philip Jordan Show podcast. Of course, I am Philip Jordan, checking out over the Auburn Wire, writing about all things Auburn football, basketball, baseball, anything Auburn. We got you covered. And on this episode of the show, we'll be a little bit shorter podcast than normal. Just a little life update in the middle of a move from our apartment to house. So kind of a shorter episode here. But we are going to look at the other side of the national championship game. A few days ago, we talked about Miami with Luke Chaney of On 3. Now, today, we'll be talking with Jacob Goins from Locked On Hoosiers, where he talks about the Indiana Hoosiers every single day. But you also check him out over on ESPN 106.7 in Auburn, where he talks all things Auburn athletics, was ever going to SEC there. And also, he is the voice of the Auburn High Tigers. So, fun conversation coming up with Jacob. We'll go about 18 minutes, and we will dive into Curt Cignetti, Fernando Mendoza, the matchup with Indiana going up against Miami. And also, we will talk a little Auburn football. So, it will not be just talking about Indiana. We'll talk some Auburn football as well. Anyways, for all that, let you guys know, find me and the podcast. Find me on social media at P Jordan Sports. Find me on YouTube at Philip Jordan Sports. You can find the podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you check out podcasts. You can also email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. Now, let's jump into it with today's featured guest, Jacob Goins from Locked On Hoosiers and ESPN 106.7 in Auburn. Everybody joining me on the show today is Jacob Goins. You can check him out every day on Locked On Hoosiers, getting ready for the national championship game against the Miami Hurricanes. Obviously, he's been on the show before, voice of the Auburn High Tigers, and you can hear him in Auburn on the line Monday through Friday, 2 to 4 on ESPN 106.7 there in Auburn. And Jacob, appreciate you coming on. Little change up. Usually having you on talking all things Auburn stuff, but today we're talking Indiana Hoosiers. But I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, there's a lot more football excitement in Bloomington there is in Auburn right now. So, appreciate you having me back on, and happy to preview a national championship game. Crazy that we're already to that point, but yeah, happy to be back on.
You know, and just looking at these last 2 years for Indiana, and you had to know people that just know college football, know Curt Cignetti is a really good coach going into taking a job in Indiana. Mm-hmm. What he did at JMU and his other stops, being, under Nick Saban, learning from there and then jumping and being a head coach. But obviously, Indiana, where they're at, all time. Everybody knows, they've seen the numbers. Just what has it been like these last 2 years, talking about this team, this Indiana team that's been one of the best, if not the best team in college football the last 2 years?
I mean, it's been awesome, right? I mean, I've been doing Locked On Hoosiers for 2.5 years, and within the first couple of months that I took the job or took the show, that's when Curt Cignetti got hired, was at the end of that current football season, and then he got hired in that offseason. So I had only been doing it for a month or two, and then he got hired. And look, Indiana fans were, I don't know, hopeful at best, not overly hopeful, not overly excited because of how bad football has been for so long. And so people didn't really know what to expect. And then he came in and started making some demands and started setting some standards, and people were like, who the heck is this guy? And then he started winning. And it was like, oh, okay, he's kind of good. He talks crap about other teams. He's kind of an older guy and starts to go get some talent. And all of a sudden, the Hoosiers start winning. And it's like, okay, there's some dudes on this team. Okay, they could actually beat some teams. Okay, they're going on a run, right? And year one was magical because that's what it was a run. It was, wow, how long can this go? How long can this last? What's going to happen here? And Indiana got humbled twice a year ago against Ohio State in the regular season, and then against Notre Dame in the college football playoff. And it was like, okay, Hoosier fans got a taste of it. what can we do now? Can we do it again? Right? Can we double down and try to improve? And I think they did. They went to the high school recruiting ranks and brought in a top 25, top 30 class. They also went and hit the transfer portal very hard and loaded up in the areas that they needed to, especially on the offensive and defensive lines, because that's just where they got whipped a year ago. And now they're the best team in college football. So the ride has been, it's been incredible, dude. It really has. I mean, it's hard to put it into words, right? And that's what I get paid to do every day. But it's a lot of fun. But I have refrained from describing this current season as a magical run or a historic run or anything like that, because I think this is legit, right? This isn't the Hoosiers getting lucky. This isn't them catching people off guard. This team is good. They're really good, and they're national championship good, I think. And so not only do I think it can happen this year, I think Curt Cignetti has built something to last in Bloomington for years to come.
Yeah, last year, a lot of people, especially nationally, picked it apart. The schedule Indiana played his first year, and then when they played Ohio State, they played Notre Dame. It didn't end the way they wanted it to. You mentioned made the adjustments with the roster. We go into this year, you're playing Oregon. At the time you look at the schedule, there's Penn State, which we know they didn't turn out well. It still was a tough game, and really maybe one of the not turning points, but one of those moments, especially for the quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, driving the team down the field to win the game. You see a lot of national championship teams have to do that. A team that they should have probably blown out, but it's a close game. They play over their heads. You beat Ohio State in the national championship and just the pure dominance in the two playoff games. I mean, Alabama 38-3, Oregon. You thought, okay, because I feel like with the playoffs now, Jacob, I've been saying this phrase a lot. It's hard to beat the same team twice in 1 year. We saw it with Georgia losing Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia in the SEC championship game. We've seen situations of that. But it just a dominant look. And I was also impressed with him. The fact is when he gets interviewed after games, because you'll hear the Penn State game is one that always sticks out to me. Talking about, you've never won here before. And he said, no, this team's never played here before. And I like that because he's changing the way people think about Indiana, which we saw a little bit after, I think it was after Alabama, this moment too big. He goes, you wouldn't ask that if our name wasn't Indiana. Yeah. But just the job he has done just to change how people view the Indiana program has been really amazing on how he's done it. And it's really a testament to the era of college football we're in now too.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's not only changing how people view Indiana, but I think it's also changing how people view this new era of college football, which you mentioned, and the idea that you can win, and you can win right now. You don't have to wait 3, 4, 5 years to win and compete in college football. And that's what makes so many fan bases around the P4 so frustrated, right? Teams like Auburn, teams like other examples of that in these major conferences. It's like, well, man, we can win right now too. We should be winning, or we can win. And it doesn't matter what your history is. Take Vanderbilt. That's another perfect example of you get the right coach, the right mentality, the right money, the right situation, you can compete and you can win games. And so, yeah, I love covering Curt Cignetti. The guy is a walking quote. He is awesome. He just doesn't care what anybody thinks. And he has so many of the Nick Saban tendencies, which is fascinating to look at because of the guy who started as a recruiting coordinator for Nick Saban at Alabama when he got hired there in Tuscaloosa, and he's carried so much of that with him. And so he has changed the program. He's changed college football forever, and now he's going to try and go win a national title on Monday.
And he's got the look down. I mean, the looks on the sidelines.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
They've been there all year, but with the, everybody more eyeballs on it with the playoff, absolutely more people have been seeing it. It was funny the other night during their broadcast where they're like, is he going to do the face? And he did do the face. Yeah. It's almost, sometimes I wonder, does he know there's a camera on him when I don't know. It's funny. Fernando Mendoza. And I remember going the year, and I had a guy on the show that's an NFL draft guy. And I saw his mock draft, and Fernando Mendoza was at the top of the list. And I got to thinking of me, just because my exposure to Fernando Mendoza was when they played Auburn. I was like, okay, he's got a good arm. I mean, he's a traditional drop back passer. I had some doubts in my mind. Look, this guy's going to be the top pick, not overly athletic, but just the way he plays, getting the ball out quick, just nothing phases him, especially the Oregon game early in the regular season. He throws a pick six, he just comes back and just balls out. What's been for you, why it's been so successful for Mendoza with Indiana, how that's just all worked for them?
I think it's just you mentioned it, his cool, calm collectiveness every play of every game, no matter what the situation is. He doesn't turn the football over much, and when he does, he just shakes it off. He acts like it didn't even happen, which is so difficult to do at that level of football or just in life in general. I mean, how many of us are able to make a big mistake and then just move on and act like it never happened? It's really hard to do, right? Fernando Mendoza I've never seen anybody do it the way he does. And yeah, pick six against Oregon, threw a big interception against Iowa, also had an interception early against Ohio State. Mm-hmm. And you don't even remember those because he makes up for it and then some. And that's what makes Fernando Mendoza so special. And then the arm talent, the decision-making, the precision that he has throwing the football, he's NFL ready right now. And that's why, depending on what mock draft you look at, I mean, he's a top 5 pick, but for most of the season, Philip, he's been the number 1 pick. He's been projected as the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft as a guy who played at California and now playing at Indiana. But he also plays in a really good system, too, a system that benefits him. It's built around him, and a guy that, I mean, I'd have to look at the official stat, but I don't think he's averaging but about 24, 25 attempts per game this season. He had 20 against Oregon. Now, a lot of that is because they've blown people out and he hasn't played a bunch of fourth quarters and things, but the offense is, funny enough, it's built around him, but he's not the focal point of it, if that makes sense. Like, they don't want him throwing it 35 times. They want him throwing it 25 times, and he's going to complete 20 to 22 of those. They're all going to be the right play, and Indiana's going to put up a bunch of points. So I think he's NFL ready. He's a pocket passer. He needs an offensive line. He loves to hand the football off, too. And when you need him to make a big throw, he's absolutely going to make it.
And we all know who has the first pick. We don't, and he could very well be playing for the team that Tom Brady is running, and that would not be a bad thing to learn anything from the greatest of all time.
Oh yeah,
Tom Brady. Looking at this matchup with Miami just on the match run. We talked about the age or we're in the college football. We were very close to having Indiana versus Ole Miss, a national championship game, and no one about 5 years would ever believe that statement at all. But Miami, of course, their team. History behind him being a national. Obviously, it's been a long time. And Cristobal, I've seen interviews of him. They ask, "Is the U back?" He'll deflect that. But this Miami team they play great on the line script. This game is going to be fascinating up front on the offensive and defensive line for both teams. Of course, Miami's got Messidor and Kane up front, pass rushers that can get after the quarterback. They've been able to run the ball with Fletcher, and Carson Beck has just done what's asked of him. He hasn't had to really be great. He was asked more of him against Ole Miss, the game-winning rushing touchdown. What sticks out to you that that's going to be keys for Indiana to come out with a championship? Because look, they're the favorite in this game, but there's some things about Miami that can cause some problems.
I mean, play mistake-free football is the first one for me. And for Indiana, look, you are not going to have an overwhelming advantage on the offensive and defensive lines. Miami's D-line, I think, is probably top 3 in the country, and subjective at that point. But their offensive line is solid. I think Indiana's defensive front poses big problems there just because how Indiana gets after the quarterback, how they spy, how they bring it from different sides, how they move around, how they show one thing and then run another, which all teams do it. It's just the idea that Indiana does it so well. That's what is fascinating to me, even with one of their best defensive linemen who's been out for the entire college football playoffs. I mean, that's what's important to note here is that Indiana hasn't skipped a beat, and that's really impressive to me. And so between that, an aggressive secondary that loves to get picks, D'Angelo Pons, he's the best corner in the country, had a pick 6 against the Ducks on the first play of the game in the semifinal. That defense is nasty for Indiana, and I don't think Miami has seen one quite like it. Ohio State's pretty darn close, but I think Indiana's proven they're better than Ohio State defensively, and I'm waiting for Carson Beck to screw up. That's what I'm waiting for, and I think this is it because he's played well. Texas A&M was fine. The next game was solid, and then the last game was pretty good for Carson Beck. And it's a ticking time bomb for me. And I think when he goes up against the IU defense, I don't think he stands a chance. I think he throws several picks. I think Indiana will convert on those because they've done it all season long. And I'm not betting against the Heisman Trophy winner. I'm not going to do it. I think Indiana knows their offensive identity. They're going to run the football with a two-headed monster. They're going to put it in Mendoza's hands when they need to and get it to some of the best receivers in college football. So I think it's a little bit closer. I think IU will have a steady lead in the fourth quarter, kind of pull away late. I like 31-17, 31-14, somewhere in there for Indiana to win this thing. Hopefully it's a little bit more entertaining than some of the first games we've seen from the Hoosiers. But at the end of the day, I do think Indiana brings home the first national championship.
And then to be the first ever look, which there's not been a lot of opportunities of this, obviously, the first ever 16-0 college football team doing what they're doing there as well. And that's how I am with the game. I feel like I've said this every week with Miami, though, in these playoffs. It's when they go in these games, I just don't trust Carson Beck. And you're right. I'm worried. Now, he's played well since the SMU game, only 2 interceptions, but he's still capable. We saw it at Georgia. We've seen it earlier this year. He's capable. And if you take away that run game of Fletcher, which I think they're not going to have as easy time running the ball as they've had in these previous 3 games. So you got to think, too, that's going to be something that Indiana's going to, so more going to be put on Carson Beck. So I'm with you. I'm favoring Indiana, too, because if you had to tell me who's going to win a championship, I had to go win the title, Mendoza or Beck. I'm taking Mendoza because he's consistently shown he is reliable and he won't make that many mistakes as Beck. Real quick before I let you go, of course, obviously on the radio, you're there in Auburn. I think probably a few weeks ago when the portal stuff was first coming, we knew which Auburn players were going in. All the players that have left, I think a lot of Auburn people were kind of panicking, worried where was the offense going to be. I think they've done a good job, obviously bringing in. Maybe they should call them the Auburn Bulls next year. I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure that'll get floated out there on offense, especially. But I look at this: Byron Brown at quarterback, and then you bring in Bryson Washington from Baylor, Jeremiah Cobb coming back. You still got Omar Mapson, and we'll see what happens with Alvin Henderson with his future at Auburn. But they've got and if the line blocks, this team could be dangerously good next year as a running team. What's kind of like been your overall take of what Golis has done with this roster?
I like the offensive additions. I do. I mean, for me, I highlight the defensive retentions. That's what I'm noticing most is the guys that are hanging around defensively on top of what you are bringing in from South Florida and a couple of other places on top of some of your recruits that you're able to bring in as well. And so defensively, you're going to be just fine. I think you are loaded at so many different spots over there. But for the offense for Auburn, look, Byron Brown ran a top 10 offense a year ago with Alex Golis calling, the offense and designing it and doing things. And you now went and got a starting center from that South Florida team. So in best. And so I think that the offense has potential, right? You've got potential with Byron Brown. You have potential with what should be a pretty solid running back room. And then who's going to be catching the football? You went and got one of his favorite targets from South Florida. You're bringing in some more guys as well in that portal class. And so I think the potential will be there. I absolutely do. But until Auburn gets a solid 5 up front, I just don't know. And the idea that you're bringing so many guys from South Florida on a good offense down there, I know it's not what some Auburn fans want to hear, right? You're bringing a G5 offense to the P4 and the SEC, and how can they take the step up? But it's the same offense. It's the same system, just going up against a different opponent. And so until I see it, I'm not going to really buy a ton of stock in it, but I'm not doing that from a negativity standpoint or a lack of confidence. I'm doing that from protecting my assets, if you will, and being in see it to believe it mode, because Auburn has burned me way too many times.
Yeah. Because look, I was one. I thought it was going to work with Hugh Freeze. I thought he was the guy that he got the recruiting part down right. It's just the on the field product of the offense. So I think the biggest thing for him, for Golis, will be getting a winning record. And I'm not saying go 6-6, 7-5, 8 would be great, just to get Auburn off this losing season streak. Then I think, okay, that's behind you. And then now you can kind of move forward. Because it's all about just kind of, I think, next 2026, I think is all about just moving them in the right direction and then see what he can do after that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I totally agree.
All right, man. Well, this has been fun as always. Appreciate you coming on, talking all things Indiana, getting ready for the championship game on Monday. I can't wait for the game. And, of course, a little Auburn football talk in there as well. If the listener viewers want to check out online, where can they find you?
You can follow me on X at Goins2 Jacob. That's Goins, the number 2 Jacob. Tons of stuff going on right now. Locked On Hoosiers. You can follow that on YouTube and subscribe there or wherever you get your podcast. And then, Auburn Sports Talk Radio, ESPN 106.7 or ESPNAU.com.
Everybody go check Jacob out doing all the stuff. Hoosiers, Auburn High, Auburn sports there on the radio, on the line. As he just mentioned, basketball team in action on Wednesday night as the day we're recording this. They'll have plenty to talk about that as well this week as well. But Jacob, appreciate the time, and I look forward when we get to do this again.
Yep, always appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right. Once again, thanks to Jacob Goins for spending some time talking about the Hoosiers. Busy stuff going on for him and Luke earlier in the week. Appreciate both of them coming on to talk about the national championship game coming up this week on Monday. And as you can tell there, I'm picking Indiana to win the game. And I know I've said this, and I've been discounting Miami, and I just don't feel like Miami's going to be able to run the ball like they have in the first 3 rounds of the playoffs against the Indiana team, and more is going to be put on Carson Beck. And I just feel like that Indiana will cause some turnovers and some mistakes for Beck. And just between 2 quarterbacks, I trust Mendoza more when it matters. So I'm going to go with Indiana to win this one, and 16-0 for the Indiana Hoosiers. Who would have thought? Who would have thought with this team? Real quickly, some NFL picks for divisional round week. The Bills at the Broncos. These two played last year in the wild card round. And that game was in Buffalo, and Buffalo won pretty easily in that one. I'm still going to go Buffalo. Look, they're my Super Bowl pick. Denver had a great year. Bo Nix has played well, almost 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns. This defense for Denver is off the charts, but just going to ride with Josh Allen. I think he's carrying this team to a championship this year. 49ers Seahawks. With the injury to Kittle, I think the Seahawks will win kind of like they did at the end of the regular season. Defensive game, they won't need to score a lot of points. I think they'll handle the 49ers. The Texans and the Patriots, I think the Texans defensive front is going to get after Drake May. This one kind of like they did against Aaron Rodgers. Rams and the Bears, I think the Rams are going to take this one because unlike the Packers, they will not take their foot off the gas, and they will continue pushing forward to win the game. So, AFC Championship game, I'm still got my same pick. I had Bills versus Texans, and I still got the Rams and Seahawks playing each other in the NFC Championship game. So, it should be a lot of fun. Bill Bender will be on the show next week, as always, recapping the national championship game. I am looking forward to that as always. And next week, after next week, some different stuff's coming. Just gonna let you guys know that. And that's all I'm gonna say. Just got to wait. Anyways, guys, I appreciate you. Anybody checking out the live stream of this podcast and also the audio podcast. I really do appreciate it. This thing has gone through some changes and over the years, and there's some changes coming down the road for me, and with this, what I'm doing, my media stuff and all that. So I appreciate it over the years. Last 10 years been great doing this, and I appreciate everybody that's checked it out if you're still with me. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here. Enjoy the divisional round. Enjoy the national championship game. We'll be back next week to recap it all with Bill Bender from the Sporting News. Till next time. Bye-bye.